Testing. Cool. All right, let's get started. I'm Steve. I'm the program manager for Privileged Identity Management, which is a feature within Azure Active Directory. I'm part of the governance team. So if you guys don't know what the governance team does, we've got several sessions. I'll post a slide here at the end of my presentation that talks a little bit about or shows all the different sessions that are governance related. That'll give you a good picture of all the things that the governance team does. But before we dive into the slides, I'd like to get a show of hands. Who here uses Azure Active Directory? Should be everybody, I hope. And who here uses roles? Like, who here knows how many global administrators they have? And if you were in Vince's session, it's a good thing that you guys are here. At least you guys know your global administrators. And before I get started, how many of you guys here already use PIM today? Awesome. I like that. So if you don't know what PIM is, PIM provides your administrators with just-in-time access to privileged roles within Azure Active Directory, Azure resources, Office roles that are within Azure Active Directory, and that's just the start. We also provide just enough access, which means that we enable you to use those limited admin roles. Now, in the past, when you used Azure Active Directory to provide people, administrators within your organization, access to the things that they need to do, like user access admin or SharePoint admin, you pretty much had to give them either one of those roles or global admin. But you couldn't really give them global admin and SharePoint, because if they had global admin all the time, it wouldn't make sense. They would just be global admins all the time. They could do whatever they want. Well, with PIM, we allow you to provide eligible assignments, so those users can activate the role that's most appropriate for what they need to do. That's the just enough administration component. In addition, we support some policies that you can configure for each of those roles. So for example, you can require multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication will prove that the user is who they say they are, and with, I think according to Alex, it was 99.95% certainty that that user is the person that's trying to activate. You can require approval. So for example, if you have contractors or partners that you work with heavily and you want to provide them access to the global admin role, maybe it's a SharePoint admin role, or even a subscription in your Azure resources, you can do so now with privileged identity management. Those contractors can then request access, and those individuals can be approved for access in order to conduct some changes within the configuration of a subscription, a resource group, or even a VM. And lastly, all audit is fully supported. So we have complete audit within Azure Active Directory and Azure Monitor, which correlates all of the actions so that when a user activates a role for Azure resources, everything that they do within that subscription, resource group, or resource is logged, tracked, and auditable. You can download that in a CSV. Now, nobody raised their hand, and here's a little bit more detail about privileged identity management. So when I asked who had PIM, nobody really raised their hand. But there's no excuses today. So at the end of this session, I have these cards that have free PIM for an entire year. This is an Azure AD Premium 2 offering that you'll get for 365 days, so that at next Ignite, one of you can be up here with me saying how wonderful it is that you've been using PIM. So I'm going to dive into a little bit of a demo here. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that we've been working on within PIM. So how many of you guys here use Azure for infrastructure as a service? Yeah? Great. So as you guys begin to lift and shift those applications or begin to really utilize the DevOps model, one of the things that the Azure team has recently introduced is management groups. So management groups is a container above the subscription level. And what that enables you to do is combine multiple subscriptions into a single container and then label that container as marketing, for example. So a lot of our customers have said, well, I love this concept of management groups. I'd love to be able to provide auditors with access at the management group level, eligible access, and then they can just-in-time access into a subscription underneath that. And so what I'm going to do is demonstrate that. So from this subscription, actually it's this subscription, Wingtip Toys. And you can see here, I'm at a subscription. So I have privileges here, but if I go back, I can now select management groups. And what you'll see here is a list of all the management groups in my organization that I have access to. And if I need to access a particular management group, I go ahead and select one of those. And within there, I will have a specific role to activate. I don't actually have one in this, but I'll demonstrate with in this one. But I'll demonstrate with a different subscription. The concept is the same. This is the wrong demo environment. But I want to keep things moving. So what I'll do here is I'll activate a role. And one of the frequent asks that we get from our customers is, I want to provide somebody with the autonomy to access lots of resources underneath, but not permanent access. So 0 standing admin access. So here, I'll go to activate my role. And when I do so, I can choose the scope. And the scope is really important because that's what dictates what I can or cannot do within this particular role. And of course, the demo gods are not playing nicely with me. I'll just choose this particular one. All right, so I've selected the scope here. And what you can see is I have access to all of the resource groups or subscriptions. Imagine these were subscriptions. All of the subscriptions underneath this management group. And so as an auditor, if I needed to validate whether or not somebody had access to a single subscription, I could choose to activate my role into just that subscription. And one of the changes that we're making as of Friday this past week is, in the past, if I were to select this particular resource group, it would change my settings so that my active duration was followed whatever settings I had at the resource scope. But we're changing that as of this Friday to follow whatever the assigned scope is. So for example, if I have an assignment at the management group level and I choose to activate into the subscription, the policies that are in place at the management group level will apply no matter what level or scope that I choose. So you can see here, if I choose to update my assignment here, it'll only, or the scope, it'll only change what I'm actually activating into. It doesn't change the duration for hours. And it doesn't change any of the requirements. So there, I'm just going to go ahead and activate into that role. Now, a frequent concern that customers have with PIM is that it takes too long to activate roles, to activate my roles for Azure or for Exchange. So one of the things that we're looking to do is speed that process up with a new Application Access tab. How many of you are familiar or have used the Application Access tab? Probably not many. One. And I say not many because most of you didn't raise your hand when I asked if you had PIM. So when you go and activate your roles, what this Application Access tab actually does is it invalidates the cached credentials that are being used within the client experience. And it tells the client to go and look for your new credentials, and you'll have instant access to Azure resources or to Azure Active Directory. So here, because I just activated into a subscription with the resource groups, it invalidated my token, and I can see all of the resources I have access to. It brings me right to that, and I can go ahead and access any of that, any of those resources. I can go ahead and configure any of that information. As more and more of our resource providers begin to leverage the Azure RBAC or role-based access control platform, we'll get more and more of these providers to leverage privileged identity management, and that includes things at the data plane. So as of right now, we support all of the Azure relying parties or resource providers within the framework for control plane. So control plane is something like clicking in a VM, and I can do configuration for any of these types of activities. It could be setting resource locks, adjusting properties, or updating networking settings. But that doesn't really help you at the control plane or at the data plane or data layer for things like Azure SQL. So if you have Azure SQL databases or you have Azure Key Vault, one of our investments or things that we're looking to do very soon is support the data layer. So you'll have just-in-time access to Azure SQL and clusters as well as Key Vault. So I am going to switch gears and talk a little bit more about the Azure Office Cloud. So for Office, we support quite a few roles, and I have that in the other browser. And I'm pleased to announce that we've introduced several new roles that we'll be supporting, including 4 brand new roles for Teams. You can see those here at the bottom. So we have 4 brand new Teams roles that we'll be supporting for just-in-time access, as well as some new Intune roles like client admin and cloud device administrator. And so when a user needs to access any of these particular roles, there's a new activation experience as well. So they would go to My Roles. I'll jump back to the other demo tenant. And you can see here I have a series of 5 roles. I'm active right now as a global administrator, but to demonstrate, I'm going to activate a different role. I'm going to activate the service or security reader role. And when I go and do this, we're introducing a couple of new things here. One is, if you're not familiar with it, we have a way to associate a ticket number with a ticketing system like ServiceNow. So for example, if your organization uses ServiceNow or any ITSM platform, and an individual needs to go and service a ticket, they can go in here and activate that role and assign it to a particular ServiceNow ticket number or other ticket number. So you can see here, I'll just put ServiceNow and my activation for a change. Now, if you do use change control within your organization, we do offer a custom activation start time. So this is truly a great feature when it comes to a change review. So for example, if you have a change review board or a CAB review board, and they go through all of the changes and you schedule those for a particular day and time, you can use this custom activation start time to specify the date and time window in which that change was scheduled for. So this can prevent somebody from making a malicious change or an inadvertent change without being within that change window. I'll go ahead and click Activate. And this will submit the activation. And as I mentioned earlier, you can require approval. And so one of these roles requires approval as well. So you can see here that the activation request was submitted, but it's pending approval. I'm going to jump back to my directory roles here. And one of the great features of privileged identity management for Azure or for directory roles is the ability to see who has access to what resources. And that's an often overlooked tool is the wizard. So here you can use the wizard to begin the investigation of who activates or who has privileged roles in your environment. It gives you a breakdown on a per role basis of who has permanent access versus who has eligible access. This tool is available at all times to the privileged role administrators. And so I can go ahead and go into the global administrators. It gives me a list, a visual list of who is a global admin. And once I can review that, then I click Next, and it gives me the ability to quickly make all of those people that are active or permanent eligible. So here I can go ahead and click a few people and make them eligible. And so this is letting me know that the 3 users I've just selected are going to be made eligible, and they'll have to activate next time they log in. but 149 additional folks will remain permanent. So you can progressively increase the number of users that are eligible that have to activate. So it doesn't have to be all done in one fell swoop. So I'll go ahead and click OK. In addition, I can also go ahead and look at a specific role. Let's just choose Exchange admins. And maybe I don't know exactly who needs access just by looking at that visual list. Well, another great tool that we have is something called access reviews. By using access reviews, I can do an attestation campaign for compliance reasons myself. I can delegate it to another individual, or I can have the individuals themselves attest whether or not they actually need this role. So here, I can conduct a brand new access review. I'll call this the Exchange admins review. And then I'm going to start it today. And this is actually a new feature that we're introducing, which is recurrence. So instead of me having to do this ad hoc every so often, I can actually set this to occur weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. We call this reoccurrence. And so I can set it and forget it, and those compliance reports will automatically, or this attestation campaign will automatically kick off every quarter. The duration is the duration in which the respondents or the delegate has until the review expires. So they can either say that they need the access still, they no longer need the access, or they don't know if they need the access. And so all of those responses are recorded. And here you can also specify the number of recurrences, or the number of instances that this will occur for. So I'll just specify 10. Very similar to like Outlook meetings or configuring a reoccurring meeting within Outlook. And then here you select the role. And so for the purposes of this access review, we're going to do the Exchange administrator role. And here's where I can select whether I want the users themselves to do the review, or if I wanted to delegate that to somebody else, or if I wanted to do it myself. Now, there are a few other settings, such as when you complete, or when this access review completes, do I want to auto-apply results? This is also new. So in the past, we just provided you a list of what the respondent said. Do they need the role assignment or not? With auto-apply, if they say they don't need the role, we will automatically remove them from that role. So it'll help improve your score. And then also, what do you do when nobody responds? So if the individual chooses not to respond, do you want to leave them in that role? Do you want to remove their access? Or do you want to approve their access? Also, we're about to introduce the recommendations engine. And so with recommendations, you'll have the ability to take our recommended action, which will be based on, initially it'll be based on their sign-in activity, but shortly after that it'll also be based on their activation history. So if they're not using their eligible role assignments, we'll also recommend that you remove them from the role after about 90 days. And then some additional advanced settings, whether or not to show those recommendations, the reasoning for approvals, and to send in reminders and email notifications. And so I can just go ahead and start this campaign. And so now every quarter, this is automatically going to trigger. All the members of the Exchange admin role will receive an email saying, hi, this is your quarterly reminder to review your access. Do you still need access to be an Exchange administrator? And I'll have the option to say yes or no. And that when I say no, it'll automatically remove me from the role. And the next quarter, when this review kicks off, I won't also receive that. I'll no longer receive those because I don't have that role anymore. Along with access reviews, we provide some other convenient tools. So what you'll notice here, and if you attended Vince's session, we provide you with a really convenient way to make users eligible for their roles, whether you're going through, instead of going through the wizard or through a different method, you can quickly come here and select make eligible or just remove individuals from the role altogether. So for example, one of the members on my team, VJ, we can remove his, or we can make him eligible. So now I don't necessarily need to worry that VJ has access to Exchange or to be an Exchange administrator, because I'll receive an email notification if he ever tries to activate or activate his eligible role assignment. And then I can just email him or ping him on Teams and say, hey, VJ, why are you using Exchange admin if he didn't fill out the justification? So that was a quick overview. I'm just going to jump back here because I've got some additional content that I wanted to share. Some resources. So there we go. All right. Here are some additional identity governance resources for you to go look at. This is a brand new white paper all about privileged identity management at Microsoft. So this was just released on Friday. It's a white paper that you guys can share with your executive team that talks about how Microsoft has deployed privileged identity management, not just for Azure Active Directory, but for Azure resources as well. There's also a best practice white paper at aka.ms/breakglass. And a few of these sessions are actually happening today or right now, so some weird scheduling, but there's a couple that are tomorrow. And be sure to attend my session tomorrow, which will be an in-depth look at some of the new features that we're working on, as well as some of the overview of some new stuff in Azure resources. And please don't forget, I do have these free PIM subscriptions for 1 year. So please stop up here and grab these. And don't forget to rate the session. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.